Today we're talking about trauma and writing about it. Now, what is trauma? People's trauma is different. Everyone has had different experiences that have shaped them to who they become today. Whatever it may be, everyone has something that has happened to them or multiple things that have happened to them that have made them who they are. And I believe that it's important to talk about those things. I think one of the best things about creating art, about creating short stories, writing poetry, whatever it is, one of the best things is that it allows us to share the human experience. Now, that may sound kind of cliche, and maybe it is, but when you really go down to it, it's one of the few mediums where you can really see what another person is seeing, where someone can express something that they may not be able to speak, right? They show it through music, they show it through art, they show it through color, they show it through use of whatever kind of artistic method, right? And I think that's one of the beauties of the medium, of any medium that is art related or especially in film, is that they're able to portray things that you sometimes can't just talk about, that you can't just say, right? And I think it's really important to tell these stories. And so for me personally, it took me quite a while to feel comfortable in telling these stories and the writing of these stories and especially sharing them. I think that's the hardest thing, is that we may write something that is very deep and personal to us, and sharing it is really scary. It's scary to put that in someone else's face, have them read it and have them critique it. So first and foremost, you have to because you have to show it to people, right? And so the first thing you need is people that you trust. You need people that you feel comfortable with, that you know that they're not going to judge you, and that they're going to give you their honest opinion. You don't want people to sugarcoat things, because when you're writing things into a screenplay, you have to make sure first that you're comfortable doing that, because people are going to see it. There's no point in writing into a screenplay if no one is going to see it. It may feel therapeutic, and maybe for you it is, but for most people, when they write a screenplay, they want it to be made into something, right? They want it to be made into a film, into a show, into whatever, right? Any kind of visual medium or auditory medium, whatever it may be. So going into it, you have to feel comfortable with people seeing it, because it's hard. It's hard to show people work that is so closely tied to your life. And so second of all, you need to figure out exactly why you want to talk about this. For me personally, my father passed away a few years ago, like I think maybe 2 years ago now. And that was obviously a very traumatic thing that happened in my life. And I didn't realize it at first, but it was something that I needed to talk about. You kind of go into a spot where you're mostly just trying to kind of keep your head above water, right? When you're going through something like that, and you kind of become very distilled in a way. And I didn't realize till I started writing, just in general, that all of my stories kind of had similar elements that tied back to that, right? They all dealt with death. They all dealt with fatherhood. They all dealt with a father-son relationship. They all dealt with something in that realm. And I didn't really realize it until I think maybe halfway through one of my features, or a feature that I did write called Firestarter. The whole crux of this story, or one of them, is that it's a father he's given a second chance, and he's trying to reconnect with his son. Now, completely different relationship than I had with my own father, but it's in that same vein of second chance, that same vein of, I want to do more than what I did last time, right? I want to do more. And again, this is like a mix of how I felt personally. I felt like, of course, I feel like, man, I wish I would have said this. I wish I would have done this. It mixes that alongside that fatherhood position. And so I didn't realize till I was writing that, I was like, wow, because I'd written a lot of short stuff before that. I didn't realize the last few things I had written were all kind of based in that realm. And it still kind of carried on quite a while after that. And it only maybe somewhat recently did I start looking at other themes and trying other things. But the point is that you need to be able to identify it, and you need to be able to say why you want to talk about it, right? Because just because something happened to you doesn't mean that you may want to talk about it, or that you're ready to talk about it. That's an important thing. If you're not ready to talk about it, then you should not. People might try to pull it out of you. People may think, oh, there's some good stuff there. But if you're not comfortable talking about it, and you're not comfortable with people to critique it objectively, then you shouldn't write about it. Now, going into the actual writing portion, actually putting it to paper, that's the hardest part, Saying you want to write something and actually writing it are two different things. Anyone who writes anything can tell you that. Having an idea of being, okay, let's say my example, I want to write about this, a father relationship in this setting, in this characters, in this kind of theme, right? That doesn't mean that you can just sit down and just start going at it, right? Even if you have the scenes in your head, when you actually start pulling from your real life, that's when it makes it really difficult to put it on paper and to make it authentic. You may hold some things back. And if you're going to do it, you should go all in. Now, one of the things that helped me personally was I took real memories, real things that had happened to me, and I write them in like bullet points. I don't go into super detail trying to like write it all poetically or whatever. I just write it into bullet points. I'd be like, I'll make a little table. I'll be like, okay, this is an event, and I'll write into bullet points. And it doesn't have to be full sentences, literally be sounds, smells that I remember, colors that I remember. I remember one of them, like I wrote about a trip that I had when I was driving to the hospital to visit my father, how I felt, right? And the big thing was that I wasn't actively thinking in the moment. I was more focused on what was going on around me. You know, it was very early in the morning. It was like 4 or 5 in the morning. I remember we got stopped at this train passing by, and I was just looking at this train, and it was just dead silent, but I could hear the train, the whistle, like, when they bring the things down, the barricades down, I could hear the little ding, ding, ding. I remember hearing the certain birds, right, that you don't really hear normally because there's normally all this car noise. I remember like the sky was still almost completely dark, which is very few little bits of purple in the sky from the sun, like very few. Like it was pretty much pitch black. And I remember as I were driving, just seeing more of the light come into the horizon, right? Things like that, little details. I wouldn't say all the sentences, but I'd say color, sounds, that kind of thing. And that kind of helps you to see things a little bit more objectively. So you see, okay, so there's a lot here, right? There's a lot here that I see, a lot here that I can pull from. One thing that, now I don't know how everybody's going to take it, but one thing that I was told in an acting class, half an acting class because COVID happened, but so I took half an acting class. And one of the things that I was told was when something happens to you, something that's like a big life event, whether it's really great or really terrible or somewhere in the middle, you should take a second and capture it. Take a second and really feel it and really take in exactly what's happening to you. I was told this a long time ago, a couple years ago, but pretty much when I first started college. And honestly, it's one of the best things I've ever been told. So shout out to that professor. I don't want to say their name. Maybe I can. Yeah, I can. Jesse, for everybody who went to HBU, Jesse. Shout out to him. When he said that, it really stuck with me for like to this day. And that was like in 2019, 2020. So for a couple years. And like just that idea of like when something happens, positive or really negative, like taking a second and feeling it, right? Taking a second and seeing like the colors around you, hearing what you're hearing around you, feeling, if you're touching something, feeling it and remembering that. And honestly, like that's something that when my father passed, I did. And it may sound kind of crazy, but it was like it was like it's a great way not only to pull from later, whether that be in acting or writing or whatever, but it's something that's really great to just kind of take control of the situation. And when something really terrible happens to you, it feels like you're not in control, right? Because you more than likely are not. And being able to do that, being able to take a snapshot of what's going on, it makes you feel like you have some sense of control. And I feel like it's helped me a lot in life. When other things after that have happened that were really great and some of the things that really sucked and were really hard to get through and are really tough to figure out and to deal with, going back to that and being like, okay, well, the one thing I can do, I can't change how this person feels. I can't change where I'm at currently. I can't change this right now. But what I can do is I can feel what's around me. I can smell it. I can sense it. I can look. I can look internally and be like, okay, my heart is racing, right? My heart is beating so fast right now. I can't catch my breath, or I'm gritting my teeth, right? Or my left nostril is just filled up with mucus and I need to blow my nose. Whatever it is, something as stupid as that or something is whatever. having the option to have control over that is, or at least to know what's going on, is so powerful. And I think it's almost in a way therapeutic, at least for me. And that's really been a thing that's really helped me to be able to put it to paper. Because once you get your notes down, once you get the kind of the spark note version of whatever memories you want to use, then it's okay, how do I make this a good story? Because then after that, you have to look at it objectively. You need to figure out, okay, what is my beginning, my middle, my end, right? What is my arc? What is whatever? What is my character's journey? What is whatever's going on? What am I talking about? Is this story a good story on its own? And you have to remember, however you end it, however you begin it, you need to go through a 3-act structure. Some people argue you can do other acts. I'm sure you can. But the basic thing is a 3-act structure, and figure out, okay, what's the best way for me to put this story on paper? And also, how do I make it entertaining visually and on paper, right? How do I make this entertaining? How do I keep the story going and make it interesting and make these characters intriguing? That's a really important thing to get into. And again, that's just the basics of writing a screenplay, writing a story is making a story that's interesting, making a story that's entertaining. And again, when you mix that with real things, it's hard. It's very difficult. But I believe that if you stay authentic, you'll have a great story. If you stay authentic, again, it's hard, but you have to stay true to what happened. You have to stay true to yourself. And regardless of how it may look in its first, second, third draft, if there's real stuff in there, it's going to be discovered. If there's real stuff in there, you have the script get worked on with people that you trust, they're going to see that. They're like, okay, maybe you didn't go into the scene that well. Maybe you didn't really put that much detail into what was going on in this scene when you got to the action lines, because that was the main kind of piece of pie there, right? That was the main beef. Maybe you didn't put as much detail. Maybe you went through the scene really quickly. But all you need is 1 or 2 sentences where they're like, damn, like that right there is legit. That's a real thing. And so my script Firestarter, I had a lot of scenes that were just not cooked as well as they could have been, because that's how writing is. And I've had people tell me, they're like, about one or a few of my scenes, they're like, dude, like this scene could be really good. Like this scene already right now is pretty solid, but like I can see a much like deeper level in this scene that you could use. And again, you're gonna need people's help to get that out for sure. I think writing, one of the best things about writing is that it's a community thing. My best writing has always been done when I'm working with somebody else, when I'm working with other people, because being able to immediately talk with somebody and immediately see if something's working is such a treat, right? It's such a reward to be able to be like, to try something and someone to be like, damn, that's good. Or you do something and they're like, like, and you're like, okay, that doesn't work. Cut it off, keep going, right? But honestly, it's a journey. It's a journey to go from experiencing something to, for one, feeling comfortable with sharing it with people that you know very well, and then putting that onto paper and then sharing it with people that you don't know very well. It's a journey, and it's something that for some people it could take their whole lives, and others maybe a bit sooner. There's no set timetable for when you're supposed to feel comfortable talking about something. You may never feel comfortable talking about it, right? You may want to talk about just one person or somebody, that 1 or 2 people or a therapist or something, or maybe you don't want to share it, and that's okay. That's okay to not want to share something in this moment. I do think that everything that's happened to us at some point in our lives, we should share it with somebody that we care about, share it with somebody that we love and we respect, whether that be a friend or significant other or whatever. I think it's important for us to share those things, because when you just kind of live with something in your heart, just in your memory, it eats at you. It eats away at you in more ways than you probably know. It eats at you, and it makes you in other ways not open up, right? Where when something happened in one aspect of your life, it affects everything else. It may stop you from wanting to do anything progressively. I know for me, it was difficult to really open myself up to people in any other way. And I noticed that I was just kind of acting like, not a jerk, but basically a jerk. You know, I would just act like a total asshole and very defensive, right? And it wouldn't be in a very, I wouldn't just curse somebody out, but it would be like someone would say something that I just didn't like the slightest, and I would just shut down, right? And I didn't figure it out till a lot later that that was really a reason, that was definitely a catalyst, or not a catalyst, but that was something that was an after effect of the passing of my father. I got a lot more defensive. I got a lot more tied it in. Because even before that, I was very emotionally kind of in a cocoon, right? And now I've gotten out of the cocoon and I'm a butterfly. But you know, over the last like 1 or 2 years, I'm more emotional than I've ever been. You know, and I've opened up to people more than I've ever have, and it's been one of the best decisions of my life, because regardless of, you know, of how you may feel right now, or how you may feel sharing something with somebody, if it's somebody that you trust and that you love and you care about, and you share something, it feels amazing. It's fantastic to know that somebody else feels, or somebody else knows how you feel, really, like truly. And I've always said, like, I'll never regret telling somebody the truth, because regardless of how things end up, regardless if they look at me different, they're like, what the fuck? Why is he like, that's how he is, you know, that's how he is. Regardless of how that goes, at least I know that I can put myself out there. And that's something that I think everyone can reach, that I know everyone can reach. It'll just take time, you know, and it's not something where you do it once or you figure it out and you're done. It's a journey, you know, life, that's all life is really. It's just a journey of figuring out yourself and how to grow. So kind of went kind of deep there. We went more of the therapy. we went more of the therapy side of the podcast. I'm not a therapist, by the way. I don't have any training. I'm just a guy who likes to talk about how he feels sometimes. So yeah, so that's going to wrap today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please, you know, leave a comment or DM me or whatever if you know have any questions, or if you want to go more into depth about, you know, more into depth about maybe the writing side, or into my own personal life, whatever it may be. Leave a comment on the YouTube video, DM me on Instagram, or text me if you know me, whatever it may be. I appreciate you checking out the video, and have a good day. Peace.